Hello and welcome to The Popcorn Isn't Real. I'm Leif Eric and I'm here with my co-host Torvald, and we're joined by special guest, our sister Brita.
She's so special.
Yay.
Dude, wait, just imagine you're a little 15-year-old girl just growing up in Argentina, doing your thing, and then out of nowhere, this immortal time-traveling man just like pops into your life. He's just this angry man, and he's just following you around, criticizing everything you do, never leaving you alone, and he doesn't stop for the rest of your life.
Yep.
Doesn't that sound like a super scary
horror.
movie plot? It's like It Follows, but for Argentinian dictators.
Wow.
And he sings his anger at
He
you.
sings constantly.
He's so mad.
Yep, she ran away to Buenos Aires and even became
I
the
know.
wife of the president to try to avoid him, and
She
nothing
was
could
trying
keep
so
him
hard
away.
to get rid of him. I mean,
Well-
I will say one thing about him. Antonio Banderas cannot hold down a job in this movie. He just keeps moving
Yeah,
from
he has
job to
every
job.
Yeah.
Well,
Sometimes
the
he has no
movie
job.
It Follows is a metaphor for sexually transmitted disease, and one might argue that Evita is a metaphor for the dangers of sexually transmitted disease.
Wait, no,
Wow.
it's not a metaphor because it's a real life story.
it actually is.
It actually happens.
It's not a metaphor at all.
Okay, wait.
It's a magical metaphor for puberty.
So wait, if people
Wow.
don't know yet, we're talking about Evita, the musical about the Argentinian. She wasn't a president; she was the president's wife. What would you call her?
She was the wife of
She
the
wasn't-
president, yeah. She was the spiritual leader of their nation.
and in many ways, the actual leader of their nation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
What is your guys' favorite song in Evita? What's the best song?
The waltz for
easily
Ava
Waltz for
and
Ava
Che.
and-
Yeah,
Che.
dude, right? It's the Waltz for Eva and Che. I agree. 100%. That song's so freaking good.
It's
Like,
an
not only is it
amazing
just a
song.
good song, but like the lyrics are great. And I love the power struggle between Che and Eva. And they're both
Yeah.
Yeah.
like putting all their cards
mean,
on the
I'll have
table,
it-
just telling each other, screw you.
Christine, by the way, doesn't understand that perspective. She's like, but the best song is Don't Cry for Me, Argentina.
That's what I was going to say. Is I think most people would pick the iconic Don't Cry for Me, Argentina. But
Well,
it's good, but
it's
Waltz for Ava and
pretty
Che.
good.
Come on. I also,
All right.
I gotta give shout outs to like Another Suitcase and Another Haul. That one's
No,
good.
wait. I remember watching Miss Congeniality as a kid, and when William
Oh.
Shatner says, Don't Cry for
Don't
Me,
Cry for
Alabama,
Me, Alabama.
I was like, oh, that Evita musical must be kind of famous.
Yeah.
He's referencing it.
Yep, it is. There's also a joke in Kronk's New Groove where he has two secretaries named Marge and Tina, and when he like loses everything, he says, "Don't cry for me,
For
Marge
me,
and Tina."
Tina.
Whoa.
Whoa. My favorite part of Evita, bar none, is when Antonio Banderas looks at Madonna. He looks at Evita and he's like, "Shoot, coward! You'll only kill a man."
I don't remember that part.
Wait.
I've watched it many times.
He must have said that. That's his most famous line. Everyone knows that Che Guevara said that line, right?
What are you
Whoa,
Che
talking
Guevara.
about? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, this theory's already going off the rails.
Wait, what?
Well,
Theory?
I think it started
I don't even
pretty
have
off
a
the
theory.
rails.
So, my money keeps rolling out. What should I
Oh.
do?
Well, you don't
if
keep
it keeps
books.
rolling in.
No, wait,
then-
don't keep books. But then how can I tell
Yeah.
I've done well?
Oh, by the happy,
well, the
grateful
happy,
looks.
grateful looks will help, yeah.
Oh, I've got all these
And-
figures, but they're just
And if
getting
it
in
keeps
the way.
rolling out, just don't ask how.
Oh, good. Okay. So don't keep books. Don't ask how. Happy, grateful looks. All right. I got it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Now
you're
we can
good.
get on with the theory.
All right. So yeah,
Brita,
I'll introduce this theory.
lay it on us.
Yeah.
What is it?
So the theory that we're talking about today is about the, I believe, 1996 movie Evita, starring Antonio Banderas and Madonna as the two leads, and the main characters of this movie are Evita and Che. And the theory we're talking about this week is that Che is actually Che Guevara, and he is capable of time traveling, following Evita around throughout this movie.
What a scary,
Okay.
scary man.
Already blowing my mind because I thought that it was already an accepted fact that this was Che Guevara and that Che Guevara can time travel.
Yeah, that's why it's not much of a theory, honestly.
It's like I said, this is not a metaphor. This is not hypothetical. This is real life. This actually happened. This is history. But wait, just in case. So I do have to point out one thing. Anybody who just watched Evita, the musical film, casually, would have no idea what Antonio Banderas' character is named. And they're going to be asking right now, why are we calling him Che Guevara?
Che Guevara.
Because he is nothing like Che Guevara in this movie. So you probably, watching this film, you probably assume that he's just the omniscient narrator. Turns out, he is an actual named character in the film. His name is Che, and he is none other than the infamous rebel guerrilla leader, Che Guevara, who has nothing to do with Evita. Just pointing that out.
And I have a whole 2 pieces of evidence that will really blow this theory out of the water. They're really good. The name Che was picked because it's just an Argentinian expression for hey. It's just kind of meant to be the name of an everyman.
Okay, wait. So when you say the name was picked, are you talking about real life, how Che Guevara got his name?
Well, he did get a nickname. His real name is Ernesto. But
exactly. So you're correct. That is how Che Guevara got his name. It was just
hey.
the word like, hey you, hey guy, get over here.
This is getting way too confusing.
He also had some other nicknames. One famous nickname he had was Dirty Pig. And then the other one was like Slime Ball, and those were his nicknames because he didn't bathe. He was a stinky boy. He was gross.
Good for him.
Yeah, but the Che was the one that stuck. So Che Guevara, that's his name.
Yep.
We are talking about some just like really great people today.
Yeah, we are.
Just amazing people. They're not like controversial, hated figures.
No, there's definitely a consensus. These people are great. Also, I did like a bunch of research into Evita. I did read Evita's her book, Evita by Evita.
That's
an
a great
autobiography.
title for a book.
Yeah, but it's not an autobiography.
You should write a
it's
book
just
called
her...
Abrita by Abrita.
Wait.
That
Are
would
you
be
telling me
such a good-
she didn't write it?
No, well, actually, I'm not sure if she wrote it. It has someone else's name on it, but she
Is
said
that-
she wrote it.
By Evita?
Is that name on it Che?
Whoa, Che. And it's all like, tell me before you
It's
walk
just
out
like-
of my life.
Is it just
Someone
a really
writing just
angry
this
book?
thing like, I hate the main
Like
character of the
everything
story
she
that
does
I'm writing.
is wrong.
Yeah. It's also called
man.
Evita Peron Tells Her Own Story. I think the other name is The Translator. But essentially, it's her fascist manifesto in defense of Peron. It's similar to like reading Mein Kampf.
Well, yeah.
Well, I mean,
I'll bet
maybe,
Che Guevara wrote one of those too.
Yeah,
Probably.
he was
Fascist
a big fan of
manifestos.
manifestos.
He wrote some motorcycle diaries. I didn't read them.
They were kind of racist, but anyway.
I also read a little bit of The Woman with the Whip by Mary Main. It came out in 1953, I think, immediately after Evita's death. And it's very, very critical of Evita. It does not like her. The rumor is that book is where most of the information for this
Che
movie came from. So yeah, essentially Che wrote it.
Okay.
It's the omniscient narrator. So the movie Evita is a musical adaptation by Andrew Lloyd Webber and I think Tim Rice.
Yes.
So it's a musical version of the life of Eva Peron, the wife of the dictator Juan Peron, and it just kind of follows her sexual escapades and how she made her way to the top and then eventually dies.
Well, you might as well make a musical about the common cat or the king of Siam.
Wow.
So Eric, or Leif, you were going to say how we found this movie.
Wait. Did we find this movie when we were like watching another movie, but then we went into the movie's bedroom and there was like a smaller, sadder movie in its bed called Evita, and that movie we were like, get out of here. And it was like, so what happens now? We were like,
I had no clue what you were going for, Torvald.
This just
And
got weird.
I mean, that happens like 6 times in Evita. It's like the most common recurring theme.
It happens once.
It happens to Evita. It
that
happens to that little
specifically
girl. And then it
happens
happens again
once.
to Evita when she's dying. Like, she
Yeah,
keeps asking, so what happens now?
I have a quick little spiel to go on about how we found it, etc. So I believe we rented it probably from Russ's Market.
From Russ's Market, yeah.
I think that is the case, yeah.
And
Probably with a
we
free
rented
rental
it.
gumball.
Yeah, so
Oh, yeah,
Russ's
those were the
Market was this
best.
tiny little market in the place where we were growing
A
up.
grocery store.
And they had
It
a
was
gumball
in another
machine.
store. It was a room in a store. Like this.
Yes,
Was
it was-
the actual store called Russ's Market? Or
Yeah,
The store was
They had
called
a
Russ's
video
I
Market.
always
It
called-
just had a video place in the back.
I always considered the
Right,
video
but
rental
they had a
place to be
gumball
Russ's
machine.
Market.
that had these ones that said free movie on them, and if you got a free movie you could rent a free movie, except that all of them said free movie. So
Well, it sure seemed like it. We got so
Yeah,
many
that's
usually
great.
you would go and get you don't remember this, Brita?
No, I remember
No,
getting
I
movies,
do.
but I don't
Well,
remember.
we would
No,
go
we
there.
would always go
and
get a
plan
gumball,
to get a
always
gumball and
free.
then get a free movie. That's
So
what we would
basically
do.
it was 25-cent rentals because it was
Yeah,
just
it
a
was
quarter to get a
amazing.
gumball. Anyway, this would have been the early 2000s, so Antonio Banderas was big. We liked him. We saw his face on the cover and we're like, hey, let's
All
get
right.
this weird
That's our movie
romance
for us.
between Antonio Banderas and whoever that
Yes,
is, because we
Madonna.
had
Yeah,
no
whoever that
idea
lady is,
who
we don't
Madonna
know her.
was. So, and we rented it. And then I think the reason we liked it so much was just because we're just like, what is this? We've never heard of
Yeah.
it before. We know nothing about Evita, and
Well,
also we had no idea it was a Broadway musical.
A musical.
And so,
Well,
like,
and it's
first
weird
of all-
because it doesn't tell you it's a musical. It starts off with like a 15-minute interlude of like wailing and sadness, and then a girl
Yeah.
loses her dad, and then an old lady is dead, and then there's
It's
like
crazy
weird
how it
Latin
starts.
bells
so we're just
and
like
stuff
trying
going.
to figure out
And then
what's going
Antonio
on.
just starts singing out of nowhere, all like
Yeah.
happily. He's like,
Well, and-
"Oh, what
but
a
then-
circus! Oh,
'cause
what a
we're
show!"
used-
It's
at this
completely
point, we're
dissonant
like-
with the tone up to this point. Go ahead.
At
Sorry.
this point, we're like, okay, we're familiar with musicals, like Disney musicals. People sing songs, but then they stop and there are like normal scenes.
And they never
this
stop
one
singing.
never stops. We're like, when
no,
are
they
gonna
never stop singing.
Yep.
And
Never.
so it's crazy.
It's not
So-
like
and
Newsies, for example, where they
think
actually talk
the
sometimes.
reason- I think the reason why we loved this movie so much was because it was a mystery to us. The biggest mystery that we loved was, who is Che?
Who is Che?
Like, who
the heck
is this
this
guy?
guy?
Why does he follow her around? Why does he hate her? Like
He
slowly we
hates her
figured
so
out.
much.
Slowly we figured out that he is a narrator, but he's not like the normal kind of like nonpartisan narrator.
No,
He
he's a
is
mad
a narrator who
narrator.
absolutely hates
He's
the
a
main
narrator with
character.
an opinion. Narrator with a chip on his shoulder.
We've never seen anything like
narrator
that
with an
before. A
axe to
movie where the
grind.
narrator just hates the person that maybe you're rooting
Well,
for.
And he doesn't just hate her, but he interferes in her life. He works at
Yes.
her parents'
He's not just
hotel.
a narrator.
He tells her boyfriend at the time, Augustine
Yeah, he
Magaldi,
tells
to
her to
leave.
go.
He says, "You better get out while you can, dude. This lady's about to mess up your life." It's
No,
just
so yeah,
weird.
we slowly figured out he's some sort of omniscient being of some kind, but he definitely exists in Evita's world. And then we watched it, rewatched it so many times. Freya loved it for a while, though apparently she loves Gattaca more.
Well,
That's a whole
I mean,
different
Gattaca's
story.
a great movie.
I don't remember too much about this time period because I was very young when this all happened. Like, I don't remember how young, but pretty young. But I do remember that we watched the movie and that at the very end of it, when Evita died, I burst into tears. So did Mom. And I was shocked because it was the first time I had ever cried at a movie. And so it became my favorite movie and is still in
Yeah.
my top 3 to this day.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the first several times I watched it, I cried.
The background for this theory, though, is that, like you said, watching it, you don't really know who Che is, and so then once I found
They
out
never
his
say
name was
his name
Che,
in the movie.
my mind just autofilled Che Guevara. One day we were talking about the movie, and I said to Eric, like, "Oh yeah, you know the scene where Che Guevara is doing this," and he was like, "What are you talking
What?
about?" And I was like, "It's Che Guevara," and it was that moment that I realized that it's not Che Guevara.
No. No, that wasn't what happened. No, so what happened was you were texting me about this theory that you wanted to do, and you said that Che Guevara is a time traveler.
Oh, you're right.
And so I said, oh, that's interesting. So, and I was into it. I was like, so your theory is not just that he is a time travever, but that he is Che Guevara.
Che Guevara.
And then you got embarrassed and you didn't want to do the theory anymore.
I wasn't embarrassed. I was shocked. I had always thought he was Che Guevara. And you blew my mind. Realizing that no, his name is just Che. He looks nothing like Che Guevara. There's no reason Che Guevara's not involved with Evita. There's no reason to think it would be
Che Guevara is a person. Most people are not this kind of person, but he is a person who has a very iconic look.
Yes. He certainly does.
A person is not Che Guevara unless he has that look, unless he's like, mostly shadow and white.
Big black beard and a beret. That's Che Guevara.
And like a cigar sometimes.
Yeah, cigar. Yep. Yeah, you're right.
I remember that as a kid, I also thought it was Che Guevara. So I'm thinking that maybe at some point, because Freya would sit next to the TV at the computer researching Evita, just calling out random bits of trivia as we watched it. And I wonder if she at some point said something about Che Guevara, and several of us thought that was him. Eventually I figured out, no, he's not Che Guevara.
No,
because I learned Spanish and I learned about Argentina, and I realized, Che just means like, hey, hey guy. He's just a guy. That's why he works all the jobs. He just represents the guy who doesn't like Evita.
But I will say that I think it being Che Guevara actually adds an interesting level to the musical, in which Che kind of serves as a foil for Evita throughout the musical, like especially the scene where she's dying and you see him like also dying and nothing happens. You see kind of this dichotomy between them. And it's really interesting because that's also honestly true of the real Che Guevara and Evita. They parallel each other in really interesting ways, in that she was born into just complete poverty, was the fifth of 5 children born illegitimately to a man who died and left them with nothing, and worked her way up to become who she was, and then also became like this fascist dictator's wife. And then Che, on the other hand, was extremely wealthy, extremely well-read, went on 2 motorcycle journeys just for fun throughout South America. And then that was what turned him
rich
into a revolutionary who was like, get rid of these governments. They're messed up. They're terrible.
He was an educated doctor, and he also probably did not graduate. He probably just kind of forged that. It doesn't seem like he actually graduated. But yeah, there's no real records. I am going to blow both of your minds right now, because you're saying that you think in reality, in this musical, Che is not Che Guevara. I'm going to blow your minds, because actually Che in this musical, in the original performances of the musical, is Che Guevara. He is actually Che Guevara. He is literally Che Guevara.
That is the first of my 2 good pieces of evidence, actually.
Well, go ahead. Sorry. Why don't you tell us about it? I don't want to steal your thunder.
When the musical was originally written by Tim Rice, he just named the character Che and didn't really do anything else with it. But when they brought in the very first director, Harold Prince, he insisted on the character being portrayed as Che Guevara.
This has to
and
be
that
Che
was done,
Guevara.
as far as I know, through all the runs from 1978 to when the movie came out.
Right up until the movie. Yeah, the movie was the first portrayal of him as not Che Guevara.
Che Guevara.
Which is so weird.
But it is Che Guevara.
That's so weird to me. He really is. He is Che Guevara. Yeah. Like, you were right, Rita. You were right. You knew it all along. I can't believe it. I mean, he's so clearly written to be an omniscient narrator and a metaphorical representation of like the Argentinian people and their anger and their concerns. And like you said, he's a foil to Eva, right? You know, pointing out her flaws in the face of her successes and pointing out her successes in the face of her flaws, or her failures, I guess I should say. But he, for whatever reason, in the original play, he was all of that and more. He was a literal guy. He was Che Guevara. And it's just so weird. It's like Che Guevara and Evita Peron are real people, and they never interacted. They never did anything together. Never. They never met. They did. Their lives overlapped somewhat, but it's like if I made a movie about George Washington and I had it narrated by like Marie Antoinette.
Martin Luther King.
Right?
Oh, no.
Like,
Yeah.
no, like they lived at the same time, but they never did anything together. They never met each other. It's just so weird. It's so strange to me. I love that he actually is Che Guevara. And I never would have known if it wasn't for your theory, Brita. So thank you.
Yeah.
You
It's
made my
amazing.
day. I'm so
Yeah.
happy about this.
Well, and the reason I think Che kind of works is because he's known as a revolutionary who wanted to bring down corrupt governments. And so I think it's believable to audiences to be like, oh, yeah, this revolutionary would totally hate Evita, even though he didn't
He didn't.
necessarily have anything to say about her.
No.
And so we're willing to believe that.
Was he not a supporter of Fidel Castro?
He
Yes.
was.
He was best
And
friends
it
with
was Fidel Castro
In fact,
not
he was
very
like
much a
he was
dictator
too-
like
he was-
Peron?
Well, so Che was like too much for Fidel Castro. He was like too gung ho. Fidel Castro ended up like sending him away to Africa and hoping he would die. And Che also hoped he would die. Like he was like he wrote like his goodbye notes to everyone, and then he came back and he's like, oh gosh, what do I do now? Guess I'll go to Bolivia and die. During the time of his life where Evita was still alive, he did not care about politics. Like you said, he was just a young rich kid at that point going on like motorcycle trips.
It was
His
because
motorcycle
of his
journeys-
experiences in Argentina that got him interested in politics
Yes,
when he
so
met.
I don't
this is
know.
actually
But
there is a very slight overlap. He started his motorcycle journeys in 1950, and then he went again
Yeah.
in 1951.
Yeah.
And Eva died in 1952, so he
Yes.
could have gone to Argentina during Eva's
no,
dictatorship. and
he's
been
from
like,
Argentina. He's an Argentinian man. He lived there. He was born there. He is Argentinian. That's why they put him in this
Sorry.
play.
But he could have gotten politically motivated during that time period and then become a time traveler.
Eva Peron died when Che was taking a few years off of college to bike through Argentina, his homeland, and also some of South America.
Yeah, he
and
went
he had
throughout South
done
America.
nothing political, nothing military related in his life. He was known to not be interested in politics, unlike his parents and close friends who were interested in politics. And he even confirmed this 20 years later when he wrote of his student self. He said, I had no social preoccupations in my adolescence and no participation in the political or student struggles in Argentina. So at the time that Eva died, he didn't care. Eva Peron meant nothing to him at that point. So I just think
Well,
it's so
he-
funny that they picked him to be so angry at Eva. But-
Well,
Yeah.
that kind of makes
Well,
sense.
that's why
'cause
he's a time traveler.
He's not a descamisado,
right.
right? He's not one of the poor
Exactly.
people.
He's one of the
an
bourgeoisie.
educated, yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm. He's one of the oligarchs she wants to take down. Which, interestingly, the book by Mary Main, Woman with the Whip, that hates Eva so much, you can really tell the woman who wrote it is quite rich. And she's
Mhm.
writing from that perspective. And she hates Eva. And that's
Yeah.
the perspective they chose for Che.
Well, and I like your comment, Brita, about how later in his life, Che Guevara became very interested in politics and very establishment. And maybe, he looked back at some of the policies enacted by, Peron and his wife Eva and said, hey, this is bad. If only I could go back in time and, make
And
sure
just
this
yell
didn't
at
happen.
them.
And then
No,
he
not
found
change
his
anything.
time
Just
traveling
mock them
motorcycle.
mercilessly.
Right, exactly. If I could just tell them how much they suck, then
Yeah.
my life would be better. I wouldn't change anything. I'd just make
Whoa.
my life happier. That's
Does his
Yep.
motorcycle have to get up to 88 miles per hour?
I
Probably,
assume so.
but it's
That's
never
the only
shown on
way.
screen, so we can't be sure.
Well, they didn't
But
want to
yes.
get sued.
Just to wrap this up, Harold Prince, or Hal Prince as he was known, the director of the Evita musical, he decided that the narrator is literally Che Guevara, and every time he is portrayed, he must be dressed in fatigues, a beret, with a big old Che beard, and, most of the time a cigar. Every time that musical ran,
Yep.
up until the film, where the director of the film, Alan Parker, he was the writer and director of the film. And he even acknowledges that Che was Che Guevara in the play, but is not Che Guevara in the film. That's where you'll have your work cut out proving that he is. But he said, my own feeling was that Che Guevara's actual story should not be cosmetically or dishonestly grafted onto our story about Evita. Instead, it probably deserves its own film or two. And
Sure.
this wasn't to it wasn't to be this one. Hence, the narrator in my film is purely and simply Che. That's what
Yeah,
Alan Parker said about this.
Whoa.
He makes a good point,
I-
but really he's lying to cover up, the best theory of all time.
Exactly. I was gonna say, I can see that he's lying through his teeth. So let's get into the film. What are your guys' thoughts on all the talk singing in this movie? Because they're just like saying lines to a tune. I wish they would just talk.
No,
but it's funny.
Every part of this movie is perfect.
Yeah, I agree. I think all the talk singing is great. There's not a single thing that should be changed.
I was actually talking to my coworkers just yesterday about this. People don't like this movie. And they seem to, the reason always given is Madonna. I think Madonna is amazing in this movie. I've never seen her in anything else. Maybe she's bad in all the other acting she did, but she's good in this. Like in the TV show Angel, when Cordelia is threatening her ghost that lives in her apartment, she says, "I'll play the soundtrack from Evita. That's right, the one with Madonna," as though that's like a punishment.
Yep, I always thought that
maybe it was just like no one.
So it just seems to be widely regarded that this movie is not as good as the musical. Madonna sucks. All that is wrong, though. But Madonna is amazing in this. I don't know anything else about her, honestly. But in this, she's great.
How on earth can it be morning all day and morning all night?
I know. It doesn't make any... time traveler.
He's a time traveler.
Or maybe... keeps going back to the morning.
he's spent the morning that Ava died. He loves it. He's like, this is my favorite morning. Yeah. I'm going to stay here all day and all night.
That might need some context. So one of the lines in one of the songs at the beginning is Che saying that people are mourning all day and mourning all night.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Falling over themselves to get all the misery right.
And this is the first song, really, of the musical. Like you said, we see a lot of Ava dying and her dad dying. And then we see Antonio Banderas just kind of sitting out drinking. And he starts us singing, talking about this
catchy tune. He's happy.
Yep. Starting out with this, "Oh, what a circus." It's such a circus that everyone's throwing on about Ava's death. And yeah, he's love how not into it.
Whatever she does, he criticizes her. It's like she does something bad, he criticizes her. And he says, "You should go die." She goes and dies, and he's like, "Oh, great. Now everyone's going to mourn you. Now it's a big circus." It's never been
and his
so
best
bad.
line is, "You let down your people, Evita. You were supposed to have been immortal." That's all they wanted. Not much to ask for.
I think he's being deliberately, kind of facetious there.
He is, but it's like, it's very funny, especially from Torvald's perspective of like everything she does.
Well, right. I personally think that his best line is when he says she literally dies. She drops dead. And he looks at the camera and says, "Why rule a country when you can become a saint?" He's like,
not dead.
"How could you die?" Wow. I know, but I'm like, it's just everything she does. She's down. I think when she's successful, according to him, she didn't earn it. When she's downtrodden, well, she just has every disadvantage you need if you want to succeed, right? She starts out as she was literally being raped as a minor and then kidnapped by a celebrity, right? She was essentially whored out unwillingly by her family. And he's like, "Oh, yeah, he's the first man to be of use to her."
She used him.
Jeez, Jay, back off. She's not doing 15. Anything here. She's just a 15-year-old girl. What the heck, man? Oh, he hates her so much. He hates her. Yeah. But this only makes sense if he's a time traveler. It only makes sense if he literally knew her as an adult, saw the effect of her decisions, and then came back to revel in her misery and her misfortune, right?
Which he clearly did, because he takes us back to her 15-year-old self right after, right after "Oh, What a Circus." He takes us back to her 15-year-old self, just slept with Magaldi, and starts making fun of her.
So they must have cut the part where he gets on his motorcycle and revs up to 88 miles per hour.
Right. I mean, it's a play. That would be hard to do in a play, right?
But this is the movie version. They should have had the budget.
It's still a play. So Augustine Magaldi, who I have to point out is Augustine from Encanto. And we know this because he is a cheating man. He likes to cheat. He likes to have babies outside of wedlock. So Augustine is Mirabel's dad, Augustine. And look at them. They look the same. They're identical. They've got the same mustache, the same face, the same expression. Anyway.
Do they have the same power to just Hulk out when they get stung by bees?
Yes, when they get stung by bees. That's his power.
Into a monster.
No, he gets strong when he's stung by bees. That's what Storm decided.
I know, I remember.
That's his power. Oh, he's so
He's
cool. He can call the bees to him. He is.
By the way,
the strongest. His
if it
stupid
sounds
wife
like we're
keeps
just speaking
taking away
gibberish,
his strength, though.
go listen to our Encanto episode.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't cover the bees thing in that episode, but
We
No,
did.
you did. You mentioned it.
did we? I understand that Che is so mad at Evita. Why, when Magaldi was done singing, did Che do the awkward, angry, slow clap for him 20 seconds after everyone else had stopped clapping? What is his problem with Magaldi? I thought he didn't like Ava.
Magaldi because he thinks Magaldi started Ava's career. Without him,
Right,
she would have
okay.
never gotten to Buenos Aires.
I get.
Well,
So
I just kind of
you're
think
right,
that Che
you're right.
hates everyone.
Well, no, it's because he specifically, we established he came back in time not to stop anything from happening in Ava's life, but to express his displeasure with everything that happens in her life. So you're
Yes.
right. He considers Magaldi to be her first advantage, the first thing that set her on her path to stardom and then fame and then fortune. So he's here
That's right.
expressing his absolute displeasure with Magaldi by clapping for him angrily.
Yeah. He
Oh,
has one of
man.
those time machines from the time machine where you can't actually change anything when you go back, or at least
I
not
feel
I
like
think
he
he
could
just
have
doesn't
changed
want
something.
to.
He just wasn't very good at it in the time
Yeah.
machine.
He also seems to have created this everyone has to sing all the time curse. So maybe that's the result of his
It's
time
true.
machine.
Wow. Brita, we need to talk about the play that we just saw.
Yeah, I
'Cause
was
that
going to
was
mention
pretty
that
amazing.
with
Dude,
with
wait,
the
you already
introduction
told
of
me.
Che.
about this.
Well, just
This
because
play was
the
amazing
introduction
from
of
what I
Che in the
heard.
play, we had this actor for Che who I think was a understudy who had to step in at the last minute. But
So wait,
he
you
started
guys,
singing.
just to clarify, to set the stage, you might say, you guys literally went in real life to see Evita the musical as a play?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
we went
I've
to
seen it,
a
like, 3
community
Was it like
theater version
a
of
big
Evita the
budget
musical.
production or?
No.
Oh.
So we went to this community theater version, and they had this understudy for Che walk out and start singing, "Oh, what a circus," and he was just the most pleasant, happy guy. He seemed so
Aw,
nice.
happy
that,
Che.
anytime he's trying to make fun
The
of
happiest
Evita,
Che I've ever seen.
it didn't read as sarcastic at all. He's just
He's
so nice.
sincere Che.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Well,
That kind of
and also,
ruins the play, but okay.
well, no, but the biggest problem was that he didn't know the songs. And
Oh, no.
rather than just singing any words, because we might not have known, he would just be like, "Your queen
would
is
start
dead.
humming.
You're back to you."
Well, I mean, it's
Yeah.
hard to make up words to a song you don't know on the fly, so I can't
It
really
is.
fault him. But also, he should have known the words if he's the
Well,
understudy. That's kind of
he's
his
the
job.
understudy in a pretty small production. He probably had another role he usually played as well. So.
And then
Yeah.
at one point, one of the extras took a random little box crate off stage, and it just fell apart.
Oh, no.
In her
a panel of
hands,
it,
fell
a
to
panel of it
pieces.
fell on the floor first, and she was trying to kick that with her foot as she went behind the curtain. And then
Oh, no.
after she got behind the curtain, I saw several more panels hit the floor.
Oh,
And
no.
Then she just left them there for the rest of the play.
Well, no, they're not a big problem. They're off.
And
off
also
curtain.
in this play, Che and Peron's mistress cursed Evita to die. For some reason, the only prop other than the box that fell apart, that they had in this play was a bunch of red lilies. Red lilies that don't exist.
Yeah.
And they used them for everything. Che
Everything.
used them as a pen to write things down.
And also, but it's worth mentioning that, it starts with Ava's funeral. So they're all carrying them at her funeral and put them on
Yeah.
her casket. And so you think oh, well, these are just funeral flowers. And then that scene ends and they all put them in their hair and decorate the room with them and
They're the
for it to be
everything
Ava's
flowers.
home. Yeah, they
Well,
have them all
that's
the time.
because Che just loved her funeral so much, he wanted everything in his life to remind him of it. So he brought those flowers with him as he
Wow.
traveled through time.
And he
right?
used
Well,
them as
but
pens.
Che and
Yeah.
Evita's mistress curse her to die because at one point they're just singing and first of all, Peron's mistress comes out and just stares at Evita randomly, then leaves. Like, I don't know why she did that. This
She's
she
out of
like
there.
5 minutes later, she comes out and does the same thing. Maybe she just came out too soon.
Oh, no.
This time though, she gets
She
like
missed
a
her- she
red.
overshot her cue. She came out
She
too
gets
early.
a red spotlight on her. Like, she looks evil and she's just staring at Evita. And like Che comes out next to her and they both have a red spotlight on them. And I think maybe they even sing something.
They
even though
sang, yeah.
Peron's mistress is not in this part of the play normally.
Weird.
And then after that, she got sick and died. So
Oh.
I think they
It
cursed
really
her.
seems like
Maybe
it's
with
the
those
curse of
red
these
flowers.
lilies.
Okay, so wait, in this version of the play, Che went back in time and did change something. He killed
Yeah.
Evita. He cursed her.
Ava could have lived much longer.
And it might have been bad. He had to fix that.
Yep.
Okay,
Well, this
so
sounds
that's
like a
all with that
fantastic
really
play.
low
I want to
budget
see
play.
that version. Yeah,
pretty
what
good.
a great two
I
props
actually
they had.
wanted to see it again.
Exploding box and red lilies. That's all you need.
No, the actress who played Evita was stellar. She did an amazing job, and so I tried to see it again with our mom, but they were
Well,
actually sold
wait.
out by the time I asked her.
Did she have like just a little touch of star quality, you might say?
Yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate because she sang really well, but then when she tried to do the one speech, it was insanely bad. Like,
Okay.
I thought she was a great actress, and then suddenly she was trying to do the speech about like
She-
descamisados, and it was so weird.
She reminded me
Yeah.
of Lenny Fraser from Ghost Rider. Like, she was really young and she looked like a teenager. And it was weird when she when she's like talking to the mistress, who's supposed to be younger than her, but the mistress was much older than her. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
Well, she was much
I mean,
bigger than her.
Okay, so she couldn't act, but she had the right
She
friends.
had the right friends.
And as we
yeah.
all know, our career depends on knowing the right fella to be Stella. So maybe that's why she was so
That's
stellar.
right. Get out of here, Magaldi. They're on to you.
Wait, so
Don't
Eva
use words
Eva
that I
gets
didn't
right
say.
down to business. She's like,
Yep.
to think you could love me. Anyway, I want to be
Buenos Aires.
Buenos Aires, Big Apple. Like,
Big
she
Apple.
spends no time.
Why does her family support her going with Magaldi? Why are they pushing this
That's
when
what
they
she
know
wants.
he's not going to take care of her? Like,
Yeah, she
why
wants
didn't
it.
he tell her that he was married if he was afraid of like her family in retribution? Once they were
He's-
on the
he's a
train, he could have
pushover.
told her. And
Well,
then why
he's
was he so
accident prone,
annoyed?
but he means well.
Yeah, but like, why does he get so annoyed when she's dancing around with other men if he was just
Yeah, he
planning to
should've
get rid
just
of her?
left her.
I
Yeah.
always
Yeah,
thought that. And then, he doesn't stop her. But then he takes her all the way
He
to
takes
his
her
house.
all the way to his house
has
and leaves her
stand,
downstairs
like,
and just
one
goes home.
floor down just so that his wife can see her.
It's a
I was
power
like,
play
this
for
is-
him. He's like,
This
look what
isn't
I
just
brought, wife.
mean. It seems bad for you.
He's not very smart.
Yeah.
No.
All
He's like, this
baffling
is
behavior.
so my wife knows where she stands. And Evita.
And
Yeah,
I want them
both of
both
them.
to know.
I'm gonna piss off both the women in my life right at the same time. Let's see how that works out for me.
So what happens now?
Ah,
You'll
well,
get
another
by, you always
suitcase and
have
another
before.
hole. This is the first song where Ava and Che actually interact at all. He's like a bartender and gives
Yeah,
her
he's like
a
comforting
drink.
her.
And yeah, I was
kind of.
gonna say it's the one song in which he's consoling her. Probably because in the original musical they didn't do this here. In the stage version, there isn't another suitcase in another hall version. She just kicks
Yeah.
Magaldi to the side and moves on to good night
Oh.
and thank you. And then another suitcase
Well,
in
I think
another
it's
hall
good
is
they
saved.
have this because it makes
And
her
I,
It's
yeah, I
saved
have
from
a whole
Peron's
spiel
lover.
about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
like in the original play version, and I've seen the play several times. So what happens now is only sung by Peron's mistress, and it's pointless. It's a stupid
Yeah.
song
It is.
unless
No, it's
it
a
is
lot
an
more meaningful
echo
coming from
of
Evita.
Evita's
Yeah.
experience. There's no
Yeah.
reason for it to
Wow,
be in
that's
the
weird.
play.
Yeah.
I can't stand it. Anyone who thinks that the musical is better is wrong. The movie is so much better.
I mean, having
They
only
make
heard
so
that,
many
knowing nothing
improvements.
about the musical, I agree 100%.
I agree too. I think that honestly, I think the reason they did that in the musical was just to give another solo
Right,
part
because
to
Andrew
a
Lloyd
woman.
Webber was sleeping with the mistress. probably.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, I think
He's like, I'll give you a part in my
Evita.
play.
The audience cares about Evita. We care about her suffering. It gives you an idea that it's like it's not just a meteoric rise to the top. She has these struggles too. And then like Eric said, it makes it way more meaningful when the mistress sings it and you see Evita being like, I don't care. But then Evita ends up singing it again at the end, right? And so it becomes this like through line, like you said. Anyway.
Yeah. Rather than just a one-off. And that's another thing about the play version. The play hates Evita. It hates her so much, and it doesn't provide another perspective of her. She's bad, and also we don't care that she dies. And
we wanted her dead. We cursed her.
The play version is a lot more overt about how they were like preserving her before she even died. And
they just have like a few extra lines.
Right. The movie doesn't really talk about that because that kind of ruins things. And the play always has the line at the end, her body disappeared for 30 years. And that's the last thing you hear in the play. And it's everything about it seems to be calculated to just be like, F this lady. We don't like her. Screw her. She's dead. Whereas the movie actually, like Brady was saying, it makes you cry. You really feel for Evita, even though, she probably was a bad person.
Well, she was
but Peron was a bad person.
She was a very complicated person.
If anyone deserves any hate, it's Peron. He was a bad guy. And for some reason, both the play and movie versions really treat him very nicely. So what happens now?
Good night and thank you.
So in the play version, when he sends people away and he goes, which means, dun, dun. In the play version, he actually has a different line he says for every single one of them that goes along with the dun, dun. And it rhymes with something he says before. And they usually censor this in most of like the one we saw, Brita. One of them is, which means you're fucked.
No, don't say that. We have to censor that.
Oh, no.
But I forget what it rhymes with.
So the cool thing about this song, Ava and Che are actually singing this song together. Like they're actually like looking at each other and interacting.
Yeah,
for
they're
the
like
first
best
time.
buds.
That goes to show that the extent of Che's powers, that not only can he like slide into any job anywhere and just be accepted, but he can just be standing on your balcony singing about how you're dumping your latest lover, and you're like, he's right.
She can't stop him. He won't get out of her life. Like, what can she do? He's like it follows, right? She just gotta live with him.
Isn't that what Che Guevara really did, though? He was like a chameleon. He went from like Argentina, Bolivia, Cuba, Africa.
Yeah.
He just slipped into any role.
He just kept failing his guerrilla insurrections. He was horrible. He was really bad at his job. He never had one success.
Each of these guys then follows him around and is there when they introduce the next guy. And that's why
I know.
at the end
they become like
all there holding
his
presents
personal
saying,
harem.
This is a club we should never have joined. But so I was like, clearly
apparently
he's picking
it's an
them
actual
up
club.
and time traveling them forward to see her next lover and then being like, come on, let's see the next one.
He's tormenting them. He's like the ghost of Christmas future. He's showing them the horrible life that they could have had or something.
What he's doing is his own like really twisted Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Exactly, that's what I thought. He's collecting all of her exes for some reason.
What a weirdo. Che Guevara is such a kooky guy. He's so crazy
fun.
with his time-traveling motorcycle.
Then after that, we get into The Lady's Got Potential, which is the first song that has Peron. It talks about his rise to power and gives a little bit of a hint into Che's political views. So he talks about just one shell and governments fall like flies.
Kapow,
die.
Yep. And so I think that it helps to show that his political views seem to align pretty well with Che Guevara's, that like he thinks these governments are weak and they're just corrupt and falling down.
Even though he could never actually topple a government.
Nope.
Well, it's harder to topple a government than you think, unless, you're...
No, I mean, I agree that it is, and I don't know why he was so dead set on trying
Just one shot, and governments lose their nerve.
Exactly, that's what he thought.
They stumble and fall.
Kapow, die, keep away from the wall.
In the charity banquet, Magaldi gets to come back and sing his great song.
Whoa. Dude, his act hasn't changed much.
Yeah, his act hasn't changed much.
Neither has Ava's.
in real life, there is no evidence or reason to believe that Eva Peron ever met Agustin Magaldi. He was a real person and a real singer.
Yes.
There's no reason to believe that they ever met and that he like kidnapped her as a child and brought her to Buenos Aires. But also,
Yes.
by the time of this charity ball, he was freaking dead. So he definitely didn't meet her
Not
here.
there.
He died in like 1938 and this ball was
Che
in like
brought him.
1942. Exactly. The only way he could have been there is if a time traveling maniac picked him up,
Kidnapped him.
brought him to the ball, and was like, now
He
get
was
out
like,
there and
"Play,"
sing.
or sing.
This is your chance to get back at the woman who hurt you all those years ago.
And-
And remember
With a
this
cool
biting
one-liner.
retort to her question or to her taunt. You have to say, neither has yours. When she says your
It'll be
act
so
hasn't changed
good.
Wow.
much.
That was amazing.
All right, now I'll take you back to your
He
deathbed.
knows he's a time traveler and he knows like he's going to die and he's still into just like sticking it to Ava one more time.
That's all he has the chance to do. He
Yeah.
can't do anything else. All right. So the ball is a big success and she meets her future lover.
Peron. Yep, and she's his reward for his efforts there that night. Eva's book, she says that's the
Dude.
most important night of her life.
No, this is like this must be Argentinian culture because the first thing he does is bring her home to his current girlfriend. That's just what men do.
You have to make sure
It's
everyone
like-
knows.
It's a showdown.
about all your lovers.
They want the strongest wife,
Fight.
so they bring them home so they can fight it out, right? And Eva, this time
Whoa.
she's ready. She didn't
It's
expect
like an
it last time.
inverse
This
thing
time,
of what like deer and bulls do
Yes.
when they, ram each other.
Yeah, instead of the
well,
men
this
showing
time
off
she's
to win over the
prepared,
woman.
and she's like, "This little adolescent girl's a freaking pushover. I've got so many biting comments that'll just make her leave. And when she asks what will happen, I'm gonna just tell her, don't ask." And then
Yep.
she mops the floor with that girl.
In two versions of the play I've seen, they have cut out the line where she says, "I like your conversation.
Uh
You've a catchy turn of phrase. You're obviously
Going through
through
a-
an adolescent phase." They cut out the adolescent phase part, so she says, "You've a catchy turn of phrase," and then it just silence while it
Ends.
plays the next bits of music,
Yep.
but they don't sing the line. And I'm just like,
What are they
So
worried
what?
about besmirching the good name of Juan Peron?
Peron is a bad guy. He's a scumbag.
Yeah, he's a-
Yes,
he's
he
a
was sleeping with a
dictator.
teenager.
I mean-
Yeah.
but he's
I would
bad.
assume that it's because they're like, oh, well, that's a sensitive subject. We just won't bring it up. But they specifically say Ava's 15 when she sleeps with Magaldi. So
Yeah.
how is this any different?
Well, you can, right. I mean, it's okay to trash Agustin Magaldi, but you can't trash
Yes.
Juan Peron.
Well, yeah, he'll
Dude
have
was
you killed.
dead at the time.
Because Agustin Magaldi didn't actually do it in real
Yeah.
life. Juan Peron did.
Definitely
So it's okay to, I don't know. That doesn't make
Yes.
sense.
It's only okay if it's actually slander.
A lie. Yeah.
No, we don't want to besmirch people's good names with the truth.
Mhm. Only with lies. That's the only way we can besmirch good names.
I wanted to say in Peron's latest Flame, there's the scene where Antonio Banderas is interviewing her. It's really been your year. Who did you dine with yesterday? And then she responds, and then he tries to say, are you going to quit? And then the two really deep voiced guys just pick him up and take him off saying,
Yeah,
"Good night,
he's out of
thank you. I love those guys. They're my favorite cameo in the entire movie. They're
Little
so deep
bouncers.
voiced and so strong. They just carry him away. So then we have A New Argentina. And this is
Argentina.
yeah, kind of the midpoint of the play, a really good song. I wanted to say that they have several points where she's like just giving speeches in praise of Peron throughout, but especially in this part where she's like,
is one of you.
One of you.
If not, how could he love
could
me?
he love me? Yeah.
Oh,
And
she's
so
sincere.
I wanted to read you the very first paragraph of Evita by Evita because it's really good. She says, "This book has sprung from my innermost heart. However much I speak in its pages of my feelings, my thoughts, and my life, in all that I have written, the least observant of my readers will find nothing else but the figure, the soul, and the life of General Peron, and my profound
Whoa.
love for him and for his cause." And that is
Wow.
absolutely indicative of the tone of this entire book.
Yeah. All right. This is going to be not Evita by Evita, but Peron by Evita.
By Evita. Exactly. That's what it is. And
All
so,
right.
yeah, I just thought that they really nailed her tone in some of her speeches about Peron in this. They also had a pretty good quote in there where she says, "I saw him clasp the hard and horny hands of the workers." that I think you guys would like.
I gotta read this book. This sounds good as the Canadian Mounted.
Hard and horny? Why those two words together?
I know, right? Well, workers
I
have
guess
really
hard,
horny
horny, I
hands.
guess-
Workers, yeah.
She wanted to make it very clear what she was talking about. Their hands are aroused.
Yeah, and they were shaking with happiness.
She sees a handshake as like a form of intercourse.
Ava, how did you become such a well-known whore if you're that confused?
No, she was just shaking hands with all those guys.
Ah, and they loved it.
Wow, her hands are so soft.
Ava's pretty hands reached far and they reached
She must
wide.
moisturize.
She must use Zest soap or whatever it was.
Zazz.
Zazz, that's right. The next song is Don't Cry For Me, Argentina, kind of the most famous song from the musical. I understand it as a reprise. I never understood it in its first form because, she was just elected
Right.
president.
Yeah.
Or, well,
why
wife of
were
the
they
president.
crying for her?
Yeah, why would they cry?
I was gonna ask the same. I was literally
I
gonna
think-
ask that. Why would they cry for
I
her at
think
this point?
clearly it is evidence to show that Che is a time traveler because he's told
been
her
telling her that she's
how
gonna
her
die.
story will end.
Oh,
Yeah, and so she's like, I know it's coming, guys, but don't cry for me.
well, but then she seems so surprised by it later when she starts to, lose her health, and she's like, "I'm still gonna run for vice president."
Well,
I'm still
because she
gonna run
thought
this
it was
country."
going to happen the first time she gave the speech, but it didn't. So she was like, "Oh, I've
Oh,
beaten
she's
it."
like,
It's
"I'm
clear.
immortal.
Me.
I'm invincible."
Yeah, I was supposed to have been immortal.
I've been immortal. I guess
And I am.
It's great. The next song, High Flying Adored, I think is just peak Che. It's like he's
Yeah,
negging her.
it's so
Every
good.
single line is just like, oh, you're pretty good, but you suck.
Yeah. Yeah,
You're just trying to make her
doing so
doubt
great.
herself
it's nice
and
to
be
hear,
sad.
but it's just unimportant.
Yeah.
Sorry,
And,
doesn't matter, Ava.
There's no evidence that she feels like, oh, I've done it all and now I'm sad, because there's nothing else to do. But he's like, come on,
No,
nothing's
he's just
going to thrill
making
you.
things
Nothing
up.
fulfill you. No, you won't even care if people love you
Suck.
anymore.
Isn't it great to have your own personal time traveling heckler just follows you around wherever
I mean,
you go?
Ava's pretty good at dealing with him. She just
Yeah, she just
turns
ignores
around
him.
and is like, I have more to do than this.
All right.
I mean,
Time
she's
traveling
the perfect
heckler is a part of my
for
life.
this particular curse because she's been dealing with arrogant men all her life. That's like her
That's
specialty,
true.
right?
Yeah, so Che picked both the perfect person and the worst person to do this to.
The reason Che is so bitter at her for having achieved so much in her short life is because he achieved so little, Che Guevara, in his
Aw.
long life.
Poor Che, you're
His life
right.
was not that long. It
His
was
greatest
39
achievement is
years.
I was friends with Fidel Castro.
Yeah, pretty much, yes. And then
Yeah.
I was too communist for Fidel Castro, and he sent me away.
Sent me to Africa. Ava goes off on the Rainbow Tour.
That's a good song. I like that song. Mostly, I like that song because for some reason, Simpsons decided to do an Evita episode, and they did.
They
that
did.
song
It was a great
about
episode.
Lisa.
Actually, that episode was my moment of, Eric was talking about being like, oh, I guess other people have heard of this musical.
Which one do you think is more commonly known, Evita or Cats?
Probably Cats.
That's
But I think I would agree. But it's weird because I think people probably know the music from Evita more than the music from Cats.
That's
Yeah, I
don't
probably
know.
true. I think
I
Evita
mean,
it's
just
like
people
has
know
better
memories.
songs. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, memories. Yeah,
That's
people
true,
know. But
memories.
nobody's walking around singing or parodying magical Mr. Mistopheles or, well, okay, I guess
Well,
Will
I
and
think-
Grace did mention Skimbleshanks the Railway Cat, so
It gets
There
brought
you
up
go.
a lot.
there's our Will and Grace reference for the day.
Wow.
Can't live without it. I think Cats is known for its absurdity. It's just so weird that it really sticks in people's minds in a way.
No,
that
but people
a
don't know
musical
how
about the
absurd
wife
it
of
is.
an
Otherwise, they wouldn't have
Argentinian
been so
dictator
surprised by
doesn't.
the live action movie
I
when it came
know.
out. Like,
There was like,
it was everything everyone should have expected, but people were so
Yeah.
shocked by it. They were like, why is this movie here? Why is it like this? Why does it exist? It's because that's what Cats is. That's what Cats always
And,
has been.
like,
Yeah.
It's Cats.
it's totally okay. And if you take out the scenes with James Corden and Rebel Wilson, it's actually a good movie. But James
I should
Corden
watch it
ruins
without
every
them.
movie he's in, and Rebel Wilson's scene is just gross because for some reason they decided to
Yeah.
have her eating mice that are humans.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, and it was like the first song.
Right, and both those
Not
songs
not
are
a good
near
way
the
to start.
beginning. And so it's just kind of like, ew, I don't want to see
Dude.
James Corden
Yeah, and
just
James
like
Corden was
bathing in his
Buster
own
Jones.
filth.
Yo. Yo.
That's
Gross.
true. I don't want to see that.
I
wait,
don't want to see
did-
James Corden in anything. He's a terrible person.
Yeah, I don't really
But
like
anyway.
it either.
But did you enjoy Idris Elba's massive, smooth
Dick.
spot?
Oh.
Yes. Like they had to digitally smooth out his nether region.
This package.
Yep.
All right.
Pretty
Anyway,
good.
release
He's
the
like a
bucket
Ken
cut. Let's move on.
Let's hear it for the Rainbow Tour.
So I was gonna say that in that song, there's a line where Peron goes off about how great she is. There you are, I told you so. Makes no difference where she goes, and he just really thinks she's great. Everyone says her name. Who would underestimate her now, right? In the musical version we saw, I don't know if this is always the case, but probably Ava sang that line to Peron.
Oh.
She was like, "See, Peron, I told you so." And it
Everywhere
made
I go, I'm
both
great.
him seem like a jerk and her seem really pathetic, like just trying
Aw.
to win him over. Like, see, come on, I'm so good at this.
In one of the musical versions I saw, when she's like, he actually called me a whore, the person who they had say, oh, it's an easy mistake to make. I used to be, people still call me captain or whatever it was, admiral, but I left the... Anyway, they had that line said by Peron. I was like,
Oh.
whoa.
What?
Whoa, that's so mean.
That's
You're
not a good
right,
thing for Peron to say to his wife.
I mean, he did used to be a general, so it fits.
She still calls him the general in her books, so there you go. He's right.
Yeah.
He's
He
like,
left the position long ago. He's just
long
like
ago,
her.
but he's still the general, and she's still a whore. Oh no.
Uh-huh.
The actress hasn't learned the lines you'd like to hear ends with like Che finally getting like super pissed off. Like up till now he's been kind of almost jokingly pissed, just like, oh, you suck.
Yeah.
But here he's like, oh, fine as those sentiments sound, little has changed for
Oh,
us
yeah,
peasants
he's so
down
mad.
here on
He's
the ground.
so mad. He's
Yeah.
seething. He's even got like a whole army of descamisados behind him, all like really mad. He's been
Yeah.
spending months building up anger in these citizens.
Yeah, he's probably just mad because for whatever reason he seems to have been unable to follow her to Europe during the Rainbow Tour. He had
Oh,
sick
yeah.
those old men.
His powers don't extend to Europe, just South
Yeah,
America.
they're South American powers.
Well, you can travel
Maybe
through
he's some
time,
sort
not
of like
space.
South American
Yeah,
demigod.
it's just a motorcycle. He can't like cross the ocean in it.
That's true. How are you going to use a motorcycle to cross the ocean? So then that leads us into the money kept rolling in and out. When I was young, I loved Evita, right? Because I loved this musical so much.
Yeah, what
And
little girl
so-
didn't love Evita when they were
Who wouldn't? Yeah, she's a great role model. And so I was in like 6th or 7th grade and I got a world textbook and I was just bored. So I flipped through to the back and was like, oh, do I know like any names or whatever? And I ended up looking for Evita in there and they had a mention of her. And so I was like, oh, let's go to the page. And I found this mention of Evita and it was just like, Evita was a wife of a president and she started a foundation that donated 500,000 sewing machines and had a picture of
Whoa.
sewing machines.
So
And that was like
sewing
the one
machines.
mention of Evita. But they actually show the sewing machines in this song. There's like a shot of them in the background.
Dude, she's the
It's
sewing
true.
machine woman. That's her thing.
Yes. I was like, what do you know? That was something she was really famous for. But as a kid, I was pretty disappointed. I was like, I think she did more than that. I also really love the moment during the song where Che is just like playing in the water with the kids.
Yeah.
Antonio
Yeah.
Banderas looks so happy.
They're so
I like
Yeah.
that part
Eva.
so much as a kid because it's like even Che, you know, who has a heart 2 sizes too small.
Yeah.
Even he was affected by Evita's, you know,
By her charity.
philanthropy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
He's like,
"Yeah,
"We got some water, we're having
I can't
fun, this is
resist it.
great."
We have running water. I could dance with this little girl in a ditch.
Yeah.
This is great.
That little girl got to dance with Antonio Banderas. Like,
I know.
Lucky her.
Jeez, freaking dream come true. I wish I was that little girl.
Me too.
She got to dance with Puss in Boots, dude. Oh my gosh.
And Zorro.
Zorro. Che Guevara.
And the
And Che Guevara,
mariachi.
everyone's favorite. Then we've got Santa Evita, the song where she finally faints during Catholic Mass and she gets rushed to the hospital. Meanwhile, Che is injured and just left to die in the street.
How exactly and why did Che get hurt right here? Like, I get that he's like, I mean, is he like connected to Evita where like when she's hurt, he's hurt? Is this like...
That's a terrible drawback to his power.
No.
Yeah.
No, he gets hurt in like these riots that are happening.
Yeah, they're having a riot outside.
I mean,
right, but he's a time traveler. He should have been able to avoid it.
Obviously, we've already talked about it. It's the best part of the movie, but just that they're both dying at the same time, and somehow they go to this just place where they can like face off against each other. Like, this is the climax of the film.
Yeah.
Like
the antagonist
wits.
versus the protagonist.
Yeah,
you know, whichever one you think is
Yeah.
Which. Whichever is which.
I mean, Evita wins this argument by far.
She definitely does, which is funny because like
She mops
it
the
wouldn't
floor
be
with him,
hard to point out like you've done some really illegal and horrible things, but instead he decides to focus on things like, why do you have no impossible dream?
Yeah, I know.
And it's like, that's a bad question for one. Like, Evita's whole thing was a war against poverty. She was like, I'm going to eliminate the rich. Everyone will be workers and there will be no poor. And that was like her biggest goal in life. And I'm like, that is an impossible dream, dude.
It sounds like a stupid argument, but he is responding to her saying that she can't overthrow the way things have been done. And he's saying, what?
Exactly.
Stick to your guns, lady. I think you have no impossible dream.
Like, and she keeps saying essentially that like it's an evil system, but I've got to work within the system.
Yeah.
What else can I do? And he makes good points where he's like, how can you claim to be a savior when those who oppose you are stepped on or cut up or disappear? So
but
like,
really, that's
he's
more
making good
Peron's fault.
It is.
Well,
although,
is it?
I mean, she's doing it too, supposedly.
Yeah,
like
I was
anyone
gonna say, it's not
who
just
says
Peron.
bad things about Ava. But I will say, like, that is a good point. Like, hey, you can't be a savior if you're murdering people. And then she just says, like, well, what am I supposed to do? I'm not a saint. I'm a winner. And he's just like, okay, fine. But couldn't you try? Like, it's not a good argument.
Yeah. So the one thing I was going to point out about this is I feel like this song is the best evidence of him being Che Guevara and time traveling. And for some reason, she seems to know about it because she keeps talking about how she knows he's about to leave. Like, he's going to leave the country soon. She's like, you're going to ride off into the sunset. You're going to leave. You're going to... And she says, you're going to join the Forgotten Brigade, which is what he does. He goes and joins Fidel Castro's brigade, right? Like, it sure seems like she knows that he is out of here and about to go, you know, do his own thing. I think she talks about him seeking worthier pastures, and then she tells him to...
No, he says
he talks about
seek worthier pastures and
thereby restore self-esteem.
Yeah. She says to him that he should whip up your hate in some tottering state. Yeah,
Yep.
right. So he's telling him go to Cuba,
here,
basically,
dear.
right?
Is that clear,
The tottering state.
Yeah, it's about to
exactly. So I see this as her somehow knowing about his future, which must be because he told her, because he's a time traveler. So,
well, maybe. I mean, because I always did think it was weird that they're acting like he's about to leave.
I know when she's the one
she's
out
about
she's
to
dying.
leave.
Yeah. I was going to say to Eric's point about this being like the great showdown between the protagonist and antagonist as they're arguing. I really love that they sing the bridge together. And that's the one line they agree on, that, right? That they're both like, there's evil around fundamental system of government. Like, that's just how it is.
Yeah, that's definitely something that Che believed in.
Yeah. Not actually necessarily something Ava believed in. She seemed to... So I read her whole book, and she describes herself as a justicialist, which she says means everyone's a worker, but we get to this point through cooperation rather than overthrowing the government, because she loves the government. The government in the nation is great. And so basically what she wants is state-run communism, which is just fascism. So yeah, she wakes up and Peron tells her that she's dying.
Oh no, he's dying. No,
he's dying. Hey, but you have to take over. I'm dying too. Oh, no,
what a twist!
Who can we get? Che. here's, I think, the best evidence for Che time traveling. She sings all that, and then Che looks at her and is like, the choice was yours and no one else's. You can cry forever, hang your head. And then he repeats her line, how she lived, how she shone, but how soon the lights were gone. And during that scene, you can see he still has the injury that he got in the last scene, right before Waltz for Ava and Che. And it's the same injury he had at the beginning during Oh, What a Circus. Ava collapsed in public and had her surgery in 1950, which we know that's what happened there because they showed them rushing her into surgery. And she didn't die until 1952. So he must have gone straight from that riot to her death and been like, now I'm gonna make fun of her.
Yep.
But wait, then how come he didn't have that injury the whole movie? Because
that's what I was going to say. That's why it's the easiest to counter, is because he had it during Oh, What a Circus, but he should have had it during the whole movie. The other good evidence, though, is that we see during Oh, What a Circus, he is just totally mocking her, right? Like, he's like, freaking Ava, you were supposed to be immortal. She's, instead of government, we just had a stage. Like, he just doesn't like her at all. And then during this song, though, he's like kind of pensive as he's thinking like, well, you can cry about it. She's no longer here to shine, dazzle, or betray. And then he ends with how soon the lights were gone. And he just seems kind of like sad. Like maybe he's thinking about it a little more. Like maybe she changed his mind a bit during the waltz. And so that's interesting because technically this happened before he would have been singing Oh, What a Circus.
So what was the waltz? Do you think that was like some weird side effect of his time traveling? It like created a weird time bubble for them to live in?
I do. I think he interacted with her so much that she kind of got sucked into his powers. And then when they both knocked out, they just got like sucked into a time bubble where they could chat. So yeah, there we go. The evidence that Che is Che Guevara. He was in the original musical, and the evidence that he's a time traveler.
He literally was. He was Che Guevara. I mean, that's just how it was.
Yeah.
And yeah,
so
definitely I think we've proven that he's a time traveler. There's no doubt. I mean, how could he have done all of this if he wasn't a time traveler? The movie makes no sense if he's not a time traveler. And we know he's not just a metaphor. He's not just a narrator because he interacts with people in the movie.
Yeah,
like he's talking to people.
They do things with him.
He takes her boyfriends and gets rid of them, which is essential to the movie continuing.
And also brings them forward in time.
He also brings them back, yes. Which is, again, evidence that he's a time traveler. So yeah, he's not a metaphor. He's not just a figment of her imagination. He's not just a narrator. He is an actual, flesh and blood time traveling man named Che Guevara.
He saved Magaldi even.
He did.
Death.
Well, he brought him forward in time at least to mock Ava one more time. What a beautiful, beautiful theory this is. I love this theory. This is so good. I gotta watch Evita again. I want to see more of this time traveling.
I encourage everyone to watch
Evita
again. It has beautiful music. Antonio Banderas and Madonna.
It has beautiful Antonio Banderas
acting, and yes, they're beautiful. So I think it's a great movie. I encourage everyone to watch it and to think about our theory and if you like it or not.
And if you like our theories, then I encourage you to go ahead and like and subscribe and tell your friends. If you really like what we do, you can always check out our Patreon. You can subscribe and you'll get exclusive access to a few little behind-the-scenes audio clips.
Music for this episode is provided by Christine.
No, the music was provided by Andrew Lloyd Webber. Come on.
No.
I mean, this episode in particular, at least.
We sang enough of it that we probably have to credit it.
Remember,
the popcorn isn't real.